Hello again. At the end of the last video, I set you the exercise of writing a program that prompts for a person's weight in kilograms and height in meters and prints their body mass index. I'm sure many of you have managed to do that already, but just in case you didn't, I'll walk through a solution. There are many different solutions here, and I'll just show you one that I would do, as well as the process that I'd go through to get there. So first off, I'd write a function, the function that's going to do the work here. So def, let's just call it BMI. I'm going to give it a short name, BMI, and what data does this function need to receive? It's going to be prompting for the user's weight and their height. So what data needs to be delivered to this function for it to start doing its work? And as far as I can tell, there isn't any. So we don't need to pass any data into this function. So the list of parameters in the function is empty. So I've just got open parenthesis, close parenthesis to say there are no parameters for this function, no data to be passed in. Next thing I would do, just to make sure I'm thinking clearly, would be to write my docstring. So there's my triple open quotes, and I'm going to write a short summary of what this function's purpose is, and this will help me in years to come when I want to reuse this function again and I can't remember what it was about. I will say prompt the user for their weight in kg and height in meters and calculate and print their body mass index. Okay, so there's a nice little, whoops, if I open with a triple double quote, I need to end with a triple double quote. There's a nice little docstring to document the purpose of this function. So first off, I'm going to need to retrieve and store the person's weight. So I'll say weight equals, and I'm going to make a couple of mistakes as I go along here. The weight is the result of inputting from the user. I'm going to send a prompt to the user with this input function, enter your weight in kg. Okay, so that's going to retrieve their weight. Then I'm going to retrieve their height equals input, same process, enter your height in meters. And I've realized this is going to be a little bit untidy because I'd like a space after a full sentence, so the full stop's polite, and then a space after that to give a space between where the user types their response and the prompt is displayed. Okay, now I'm ready, almost ready, to calculate BMI value equals. Okay, so I've got a variable here, BMI value, that's going to store the result of the computation. So it's going to be weight divided by height raised to the power 2. Or you might prefer weight divided by height times height. But I'm going to raise height to the power 2 to give me the square of the height, and I'm going to divide weight by the result of that. Okay, and the last thing to do, because I've now stored up the BMI value, I'm going to print your BMI is, and then I will use a comma and BMI value. Okay, so I'm going to use two arguments passed into the print function. The first is a string that says your BMI is. The comma will produce a space, so there'll be a nice space before the BMI value is output. So I think I'm getting pretty close, but maybe some of you can spot the flaw in this program. But let's discover that, let's assume we haven't seen the flaw, and we'll give it a go. So let's just call BMI. Actually, let's get rid of that as well. So first off, let's save what I've done, and let's run it. Nothing happened. Well, the reason nothing happened is Python has stepped through line by line and it's defined BMI, and BMI is a function. So I can say, do you know anything about BMI? And it says, well, it's a function and it's stored at that particular location, so it knows about BMI. What I've forgotten to do, or one of the things I've forgotten to do, is actually call the function. So I need to call the function and pass in the appropriate number of arguments. The appropriate number of arguments being none, because BMI has no arguments. So now we're getting closer. It's still not quite there. Let's save it again and I'll run it. Enter your weight in kilograms. Well, I'm a lightweight, I'm about 62, and my height isn't very much, I'm about 165 or something like that. So I've entered my data values, and so far everything's going just great. It's prompted for my weight, it's prompted for my height, and we're about to do a computation including division and raising to the power. And at this point, the program's going to crash, and the reason is we've got type problems going on. The thing it's detected here is I'm trying to raise to the power a string and an int. Oh, okay. So we don't know. Yeah, so the int is 2, but the string is height, and the weight is height. So if you remember, input returns a string. So we need to remember to convert the string to the appropriate type for the calculation. So I'm going to now convert the result of calling, actually I won't, I'm not going to do it that way. What I'm going to do is have a couple of extra lines here. Weight equals the float of weight. So convert, or take weight, apply the float function to it, which returns a floating point version of that value. And height equals float of height. Okay, so now we've managed to convert, hopefully, the string representation of the weight into a float, and the string representation of height into a height, and maybe now everything will be fine. So, enter my weight in kilograms. I'm 62. And my height is 1.65 or thereabouts. And successfully now, it's calculated what my BMI is, so I'm pretty happy with that. Hopefully you managed to get somewhere near that, and hopefully you saw something of how I've gone about building up this program, including thinking about what the purpose of the function is, what parameters it needs to receive, and the conversions of the types within the program. Thanks a lot.